Hey, you're listening to the Sales Hunter podcast. My name's Mark Hunter, the Sales Hunter. Today, we're going to be talking about what is it that salespeople just aren't doing. Well, let's not talk about the negatives. We'll talk about the positives. But the real positive is this. I've got Luigi coming to us right now from down under in Australia. He's going to be talking to us. And what I like about him is he talks to more salespeople all around the world than anybody else I ever know. And as a result, he knows what it takes to be at that top performing level and how and why top performing salespeople attract other top performing salespeople. So, hey, it's time for me to quit rambling. Let's get on with the show, the Sales Hunter podcast.
You're listening to the Sales Hunter podcast with Mark Hunter, where the focus is to help you as a sales leader sell with confidence and integrity. And now here's your host.
Hey, as you probably know, May 24th, Meredith Elliott Powell and I are doing a live event talking about Sales Logic System. I want you to join us, whether it be in person in Dallas, Texas, or online anywhere in the world. Join us for this really powerful day. We're going to lay out the Sales Logic System. But right now, we're talking to Luigi, and he understands sales better than anybody. So without further ado, let me get him in here. How you doing, Luigi?
Hey, Mark. Thanks for having me on your show, mate.
Hey, let's get into it. What is it that salespeople are doing so wrong?
I think all of us that are working in sales, we have the best intention, right? The best intention to help our clients, the best intention to help ourselves. But I think one thing that technology, as great as technology has been for all of us in life, it's impacting the way in which, the fundamentals of selling, which is without trust, without any form of rapport, it's very difficult to enter the zone of influence. And I think for a lot of salespeople, they're using technology because they're looking to cut corners, send more messages to more people, and forgetting the basics. If you don't have any form of relationship, if you're not having a conversation, a meaningful conversation, it's very difficult to actually progress any opportunity.
So here's the question. Is all this automation almost driving us to become more unautomated, so to speak?
Well, I think if you look at, I think the best performing salespeople are the ones that, yes, they're using technology, but it's human first. So they're understanding the person before thinking about the technology. And they're taking the time to actually go above and beyond. Like, I think when we were speaking about this topic last week, Mark, I mentioned the power of having an in-person meeting. A lot of people are saying virtual selling, it's the way to go. But I had a great meeting with somebody over a coffee in a cafe. We spent a bit of time. It was that the actual energy, the energy of having an in-person meeting and the rapport we built. It's just, yes, you can't replicate that in a Zoom or a Teams call, right?
I this begs the question, and it feels like the CFOs, the chief financial officers of the company, are driving us to virtual meetings, and yet the results are really in the face-to-face meeting. And I would love to see, and it'd be very hard to do, but I would love to see a study be done. What is the cost effectiveness, total cost effectiveness, not on a single call, but total cost effectiveness of customer acquisition, being one where it's customer facing with in-person meetings or strictly virtual? I'd be curious to see how that cost breaks down. Now, I realize geographical boundaries, et cetera, aren't always going to enable it, but there's a balance there, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. It's funny, like we talk about geographical boundaries and, if in Australia, I'm pretty much away from everywhere. But the great thing about...
Hey, but you're in a beautiful part of the world. That's right. I would move. Now, you're in where, Sydney or Melbourne?
No, Melbourne. I'm down below.
Oh, yeah. I tell you what, see, Melbourne, I love Melbourne.
Yeah.
I love it. There is nothing better than sitting along that canal or that river right there by the convention center.
Yeah, it's awesome, isn't it?
I love that. I love that area. Love that area.
But I mean, I think the fact that we can establish relationships, the fact that we have a relationship, we can have conversations via, it makes it so much easier to build and create a network. But if the thing is, it shouldn't be the only way in which we engage with our prospects and our clients. We should be making an effort to get out there and meeting them face to face.
How do we do that? Because again, how do we just say we're going to go out there and make it happen that way? Because I mean, we may have bosses who are saying, no, you're tied to the computer. And because we can automate it, I want you to send out 1,000 messages. I want you to send out 1,000 messages. How do we break that paradigm?
Yeah, that's a challenge. If management's telling you to do it one way and they're forcing you to go down a path of, the automation path, the completely virtual selling, I suppose like anything, you're going to have to build a business case around why you feel it's important to actually go and see your clients. Maybe talk a bit about what the competition are doing. And if the competition aren't seeing their clients face to face, the business case is, well, we want to differentiate. We want to go out there and do that one, go and do a little bit more, right? Because we know, and I love quoting this study, that over 54% of what influences the buying decision or the buyer, it's not product or service, it's the actual experience they have with the salesperson. So experience matters.
Experience does matter because again, I see that so often that especially if you're selling a service, customers will deem the quality of the service they're going to get based off of the quality of the sales call, of the whole sales process. And I had this, in fact, I wrote about this in my blog the other day, that I was upgrading a part of my back end systems. And several of the companies would never engage with me on the telephone. They would never engage with me on Zoom, anything. All they want to do was really do it by way of email. One was purely text message. I ruled them out because there was no way. In fact, it was interesting. The person who really took the time to be very much face-to-face and very deliberate, I ultimately signed a 2-year contract with them for more money than I thought I would be paying. But the service, incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also like the complexities of buying today, Mark, it's getting harder and harder, right? Like we see it all the time. We see no decision or indecision, and 40% of deals get stuck because there's more than one person involved in the buying process now. There's multiple people involved in that buying committee, and it's very hard to get consensus. It's very hard to get alignment on why they need to change. So the reality is we don't have as much time to spend with that buying committee. So taking the time to go a bit above and beyond, having a bit of face-to-face interaction, for me, it's critical because they can see, they can engage, you build that relationship. It also allows you to understand, when you've got that relationship, you have the ability to ask different questions. And if you don't have that relationship, right, you could ask the feeling-based question. You could ask the concern-based question. Hey, based on what we've discussed so far, share some of the concerns that you have about this particular project,
Yeah.
So,
okay, now you're bringing up something interesting. I've got 2 thoughts that are running through my mind. Almost feels like we're coming into hybrid selling.
Yeah.
We have virtual selling on the one hand, which for geographical constraints and other reasons, we can't change. But there may be local customers or other things we can do. And we have to find a way to balance it too. Because I think if I can just do 10% of my calls locally, 10% of my calls face-to-face, it gives me more energy and juice for the other 90 that I can't do that way. Do you find that to be the case? Because you're in Melbourne. Let's not kid ourselves. Beautiful place, but there's not 20 million. Let's see. Is the population of Australia 24 million or 32?
Yeah, we're not look. It's a big country and a small country, right? But you're right. That hybrid selling model for me. Do I take advantage of the fact that I had a call this morning with somebody, in the US at 5:30 a.m. It was great. We're able to start the conversation. But have there been moments when I've got on a plane and met a prospect face to face in the last 6 months? Absolutely. I flew to Ireland to meet with a prospect for a large opportunity that I was working on. Did the same to the US because yes, a CFO or business might say, but that investment to go fly there is significant. But at some point, especially if you're selling, complex solutions, large valuation type deals, at some point you're going to have to make the decision, is it worth investing additional time to get this across the line? Now, most businesses will come up with a number. What are they prepared to spend to acquire a client, right? And as long as what you're investing fits within that parameter, you can make that decision. I'm going to jump on a plane, right? I'm going to go to that networking event. I'm going to go, go and see the client and spend some time with them. I think for all of us, all salespeople should be thinking about, yes, I need to be selling virtually, but I've got to be selling in face-to-face. I've got to have that. And you said it, that hybrid sales model is critical because the number one objective that we should be thinking about is building a relationship is key in sales success.
Yeah. And when you do choose to do that in-person meeting, like you said, getting on an airplane, you went to Ireland. I know last fall you were in the States.
Yep.
But I bet you weren't just at one meeting, one sales call. I bet you met with half a dozen people, right?
Correct. Yeah. And you use it as a bit of as a bit of an event, So when I went to Ireland, I used that. I had to go to Dublin and I called other prospects that I knew had head offices there and said, hey, I'm actually there working with, full transparency, working with Stripe. Would be great to connect with you while I'm there. They took the meeting. Right. So it's a great way from a prospecting process to actually engage with others in the area. So the benefit when you are going to visit people and, before COVID, before the world changed, Mark, you would have remembered the day, like even before we had the great internet. What did we do when we went to a sales call in an industrial area? We took the names down of all the other companies in the same street, or we'd go in, find out who the person was and go back and make a call and book multiple appointments, right?
Yes.
Those traditional sales models work a treat today.
They still work today. I mean, for years, I was working with companies that would sell services, basically door to door in business communities.
Yeah.
And I'd say, you may have an appointment here, but it's 5 doors left, 5 doors right. Right. And that's that's to fill the time until your next appointment. But you never make just one call. And this comes back to the value of prospecting, the value of understanding how to prospect. Because like, for instance, you have a full prospect list. So you could look at that. You're going to Dublin. Who else do I know in Dublin? Who else do I know? And I find myself doing the same thing. If I'm going to a community, if I'm going to be in just, I live in there are probably more people within a 5-hour drive of me here in Dallas, Fort Worth, as there are in the entire country of Australia. Yeah,
you're absolutely right.
Hate to say it. And that 5-hour drive is only about 200 miles because of traffic. But here's the whole situation. I'm able to see just about anybody I want, anytime, anywhere. But it comes down to two things. A, having a full prospecting list, and B, letting your reputation arrive before you do. Because you call people up and they, I'll take your meeting. Now, they weren't taking your meeting blind. They were checking you out, or they've already checked you out. They know who you are. Yeah.
But I think it's about being intentional, Mark, with how you use your time, right? So we go back again. If we think about the fundamentals of selling, you're right. The fundamentals is we need to have a list. We need to have a prospecting list. Who are we trying to engage with? What's the problem or the perceived problem that we can help them solve? How are we going to engage with them? What value are we going to create? And again, thinking about, our primary objective is, and it's not about leading with a relationship. It's not about, calling somebody up and wanting to be a friend with them immediately, but you've got to earn the right to build that relationship. And when you go out and you show them that, hey, my intentions are, I'm going to come out, I'm going to see you at some point. I'm setting, very strong intentions that I want to put you first, that I value your time and I want to build a relationship at some point. Selling with that type of intent, selling with that type of mindset, will be perceived really well. Yeah. When we show other people that we care, and our great friend Larry Levine talks a lot about this, right? Selling with the heart and stuff and showing them that we actually care. It will help us in our sales process.
Those last 2 minutes, what you just shared, absolutely key. Because again, it isn't just showing up and saying, hey, here's what I can do. You actually said right at the beginning, how am I going to be able to help them? What is it that I'm going to be able to do? Because for you, it may be, hey, I'm in your area and I've got time to fill. For them, they're saying, hey, my time's filled. I don't need to talk to you. I didn't wake up and saying, wow, I have an open hole in my calendar. I hope somebody strange walks in the door and talks to me. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. Yeah.
And that's why it's critical. That's why it's absolutely critical that we're thinking about, well, what is the insight? What is the value that we can create when we have that interaction with our prospects? Because if we're not thinking about that, if we're not thinking about creating value for our buyers and that value, and I love the term insight, right? Because insight leads to education. That education is about teaching them something they didn't know about a particular problem. And when we can do that, all of a sudden they change their view on us. They don't see us as a salesperson. They see us as a professional who can really, really provide a different perspective on them and their business.
Mm-hmm. It kind of comes back to play. I was working with a group recently, all inside sellers, literally inside. They were charged with between, depending on where they were, between 50 and 100 outbound calls a day.
Yep.
And they were chained to the desk. And I talked management into saying, hey, you need to allow these people, if they have a local opportunity, to be able to take 2 hours, get in a car, go, drive, meet with these people, or meet at a coffee shop, something like that.
Yeah.
And just to be able to have that call with them. Let's just see what that does. And what I found out, what I knew was going to happen, hey, they were like, what? Once they got over that, they were like ecstatic. And you know what's funny? I didn't really prep them at all. Did not prep them at all. Because I knew they would do well.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting? They loved it. They came back from those calls with more insights, more intel. They were more enthused. They were bouncing off the walls, telling others, here's what happened, here's how it was. And the enthusiasm that they had in their calls the rest of the day and the rest of the week, and the whole floor did, was absolutely powerful.
Yeah.
There were probably, 20, 24 people, on the floor. So, I mean, at any one time, there's maybe one person out for a couple hours. That's it. And what was interesting was, how did we reimburse them? $10. Here's $10 to take care of coffee or gas, whatever it is. Fine.
Yeah.
And you know what? Half of them said, I could care less. I just want to get out of here. And you know what's interesting is I don't have the final close numbers on that because I wasn't with them long enough. But I know their close ratio was higher because of that experience.
Yeah. But you think about it, Mark, like this is the other thing I want your listeners to think about as well. When you take the time to go and see a client, right? Say you're selling into a manufacturing business, a construction, but whichever type of business, when you take the time to go out there and you do, and they take you for a tour, they take you for a guided tour of their facility, right? That the power is you're learning about them. They're showing off. They're saying, hey, check this out. Like you're seeing inside their business. You're learning more. You're seeing, especially if you do this multiple times and you see it across multiple different businesses, your perspective will change about the problems that they experience and how your product or service helps them, right? Then you've got other stories to tell other businesses and other people like them, right? Because sometimes it doesn't matter if you're selling a tech product, you're still fixing a problem. And if you can see how that problem actually, or how you're fixing that problem live in that business, it's going to change the way you see things, as a salesperson, right? So the advantages of going in person is massive.
It's huge. I mean, I gain nothing I love more than walking through a manufacturing facility, some office site, whatever. It doesn't matter. Could be a construction site, could be anything, because
Yeah.
you just learn so much. And then you can sit there and share later on and say, hey, you know what? Recently I was touring a facility here. I was touring a facility. I haven't been to China now in almost 10 years. But
Yeah.
I still tell stories from different production facilities I've toured in China. And there's been other ones I've toured in other countries and here in the US and places right down the road from my place here in Dallas.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting. I don't share proprietary information, but it's able to share. Yeah. Great question here from Reggie. She asked, hey, it depends on how long a sales cycle. Does this impact what you should be doing in terms of being in person or strictly online?
Yeah, it's a good question. Obviously, Reggie, like it'll when we talk about going out and meeting your clients, my advice is whenever you can meet your clients, it doesn't matter if you're selling something like, yes, the price of what you sell or the value of your proposal will impact how much you invest, right? But the more you can see your customers in person, the more you can see, their world, the benefit to you is always going to be, it's going to be massive because it's about learning more and more about your buyer, right? Now, I'm going to give you a task that I want you to think about. Remember, our sole objective here is we have to know our buyer's world. We have to know what's important to them, their KPIs, their goals and objectives, and what challenges they have. I'll give you a task. Can you write out a job description of your key decision maker? Are you able to sit there and write out what their job description looks like? And if you can't do that, it means you've got some information gaps. You've got some gaps about your buyer. Because our job as a sales professional is to serve our buyers. We're there to serve and help them. And if we don't know that information, if we don't know what drives them, how are we serving them? Right? How do we know what stops them from achieving their goals and their KPIs? How they get their bonuses? How they get a promotion? Like we've got to be, obsessed with understanding what drives our buyers.
That's huge. That's huge because what a great description. That's a mic drop moment. If you can't write your customer's job description, then you don't know them well enough.
We don't know them well enough. So then how do we know the right questions to ask? How do we know how to prospect to them? How do we know, how to build a business case if we don't understand their role? Yeah.
Yeah. Even with a short sales cycle, people sit there and say, oh, it doesn't pay to go out. Here's what I say. It's a sample. It's a test. Companies run tests all the time. Companies have sample panels. They do all kinds of different things. So you may have a very short sales cycle, very low cost transaction, but there's still X number of those sales you need to get out and do face to face because you're gaining insight, not just so much for that one sale. Yeah, you hope you get it, but it's giving you insight for all of them. Hey, we got to close up this show here in a bit. Tell the audience a little bit more. Give them one more insight that they can run with right now to help them sell better.
I think the biggest piece of insight that I can share, I'm just going to go back to what I mentioned before about the job description, right? And is our we've always got to be learning about what is driving our buyers. Like, what are their KPIs? Because remember, they don't buy what we sell, they buy the outcome we help them achieve. And if we're not clear on what is their key motive, their number one KPI in their role, then we don't know exactly how to serve them and how to develop the right point of view that will get them thinking differently about what we do and how we can help them achieve their goals.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Hey, how do people get in touch with you? Because you've got a cool business. You got a cool way that you help people.
So LinkedIn is, I'm very, very open to engaging on LinkedIn. So please send me a LinkedIn connection request. There are not too many Luigi Prestinenzis out there. So you should type in Luigi and you'll find me. I also host a podcast called the Scalable Growth Podcast. We have had Mark Hunter on. He was our first. I think you were our first guest, Mark. Our first guest
Wow.
on the Scala Will Growth. We're over 200 podcast episodes now. So
Wow.
go and check that out. I need to get Mark back, by the way. I need to get Mark back on our show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So anyway, but hey, you do some incredible stuff. You have an incredible platform that you share, and you really help the sales world be who they are. Hey, we got to close this show down here in a minute, but I do want to remind you, May 24th, Sales Logic Live. That's the other podcast I do every week with Meredith Elliott Powell. We're doing Sales Logic Live system, where we're going to be showing you a very simple, what we've been talking about here today with Luigi. If people buy into this, I know Luigi has right from the beginning. It's about trust. It's about that human element. It's simplifying things. But anyway, we'll put that link in the show notes also, along with links on how to get in touch with Luigi. But hey, for now, we want to say thank you for listening to the Sales Logic podcast. Each week you get 2 episodes, one a short one for me, with just about an 8 or 9 minute message on a single sales topic. Second episode is a longer one like this, where we do a deeper dive with a leading sales expert from around the world. Today, it's been Luigi Prestinenzi. I hope I pronounced that right. I always get concerned about pronouncing your last name correctly. But anyway, hey, thank you for being part of the show. You've been listening to the Sales Logic podcast, and I'll see you next week. Thank you, Luigi.